Whenever I ask anyone what their preferred superpower would be, a considerable portion of people respond with immortality. I can understand why they would choose that particular power. Hell, even I was amongst the group of those wishing to be immortal. The idea of being immune to the depressing mortality of life sounds like a blessing at first. But trust me, it's anything but. Take it from someone who is actually incapable of death myself. Immortality is a curse. Let's go back to when I was plagued with this power. About 2 centuries ago, certain biologists were experimenting with the classic sought-after idea of being immune to being killed. Many people in history played with the idea of immortality prior to the experimentation of these biologists. One such example is the first emperor of the Qin dynasty in China, Qin Shi Huang. Huang was reported to have consumed mercury, believing it would make him immortal. Another example is Diane de Poitiers of France. She believed that consuming a mixture of diethyl ether and gold would decelerate the process of aging. Both of these examples were lethal. The experimenters were well aware of these 2 examples, and many more, yet they were still determined to create the ultimate non-transient being. Insert myself. I long aspired to become immortal, mostly because of my fear of death. I lost my grandmother when I was 6 years old, which was devastating to me because of our close relationship. After that, I resented death. When these experimenters reached out to the general public, asking for a test subject to this FDA-certified substance which would eliminate mortality, I was all in. I swiftly responded to the message before anybody else could. The biologist replied to my accepting of the experimentation among me via email, and gave me a link to a specified location which I was to report to the following week. The next week, I showed up at the location mentioned in the email. It was a large lab. When I entered, I discovered a sterile lab with professional-looking scientists who gestured towards a seat. I sat down, and the serum was injected into a vein. Soon after, I was experimented on in lethal situations, all of which I survived. I was asked questions about how I felt, what each situation was like, etc., and afterwards, they concluded that I was indeed immortal. I decided to show off my ability in order to get by financially. I wasn't so well off before the operation. I had multiple part-time jobs and could barely keep the apartment which I owned. When I did, I immediately became a sensation. Many people attempted to reach out to the scientists to also become immortal, or create the serum at home. The scientist also announced my ability, and they received a large profit as well. I soon saw my bank account drastically increase. Within 3 years, I had become a multi-millionaire. At the time, I was certain I was blessed by God, and I even once theorized that I was in a simulation, before cringing at how preposterous that idea was. However, my opinions were drastically turned upon their heads when I learned what would happen one night. I was in home and ready to sleep in a spacious mansion, as opposed to a cramped apartment. I was drifting off into a state of light sleep when I heard my window abruptly burst open. Heavy-set men in all black removed me from my bed. I tried desperately to fight them off, but my slender figure was no match for 4 to 5 muscular men. I was dragged to the truck of an SUV, where I was given chloroform and left for the entirety of an 8-hour ride. One of the men would constantly monitor me and give me more chloroform when it started to wear off. That trip was the most grueling of my life. My emotions were going ballistic. I was in constant anxiety, was in extreme anger, and was bored from the extensive drive. When we reached our destination, the men removed me from the trunk of the car. I was in what looked like a deserted plain, with no traces of life besides what looked like a factory. The men took me inside of the building. It turned out to be a meth production center disguised as a factory. I was immediately put to work. They taught me how to produce meth and then forced me to keep manufacturing the substance for most of a day. They would impale me with a large blade whenever I messed up, not concerned about how much damage they did to me, as I was, and still am, immortal. This cycle was on repeat for 158 goddamn years. I have attempted to commit suicide before out of impulse. before remembering that I was injected with the immortality serum I was given years ago. I'm surprised that I remember this information, as it took place so long ago. However, I do remember that one of the side effects of the serum was enhanced mental state. So, there's that. Sometimes I wish I could just forget it all. I wish that I believed that I was born for that job, and not question my life any further, as I would know my only purpose. Even though that my mental functions have not deteriorated at all over these years, I cannot say the same about my physical being. Imagine an elderly person. They can barely walk, they lose their teeth and hair, and they become extremely weak. However, those effects only apply to someone aged 50 to 80. Now imagine a 183-year-old man. That's more than twice that age group. Obviously, physically, I'm not doing well at all. I've lost all my teeth, all my hair, a good deal of my vision, my ability to stand straight, and I suffer from severe pain whenever I move, and I have to manufacture meth most of every day without much food or water. Doing this has been absolute hell. However, there is a good thing about this place, even if it's very minor. They have a supply of paper and writing utensils. I have only been able to write about my experiences because of these. Once I am done writing my story, I will throw this out the window and hope someone will find it one day. And if you happen to have found this slip of paper, and you wish of being immortal, this could happen to you. Remember this: immortality is a curse.